computer. Got it. All right. Once again, welcome everyone. I'm Vita Konitz, and joining me this evening is Greg Layden, co-chair of the Legislative Committee, and Megan Bond is also with us. And we are welcoming two of our wonderful environmental champions from the Minnesota Legislature, Representative Athena Hollins and Senator Jen McEwen. Our purpose tonight is to kind of kickstart our legislative session here as a caucus. And so what we want to do is, first of all, inspire you to join us, join us on more of these forums that will be specific to issues, but also to join our commitment club and help us make a difference at the Capitol to see that our issues are followed through, that we get some bills passed. And so our issues are going to focus around climate and toxins and clean water. And if you think about that, you can roll a whole lot of things into those issues. And of course, overarching in everything is environmental, climate, and social justice. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. As soon as I get my clicker working here. There we go. So this evening, we are joined by Senator Jen McEwen. Jen is married to Rich and lives up in Duluth. They have 2 children, and she is on the Environment and Natural Resources Policy and Finance Committee. She's ranking minority member of Labor and Industry Policy and Transportation Finance and Policy. Jen was elected as Minnesota District Senate in 2020 and has contributed significantly to a changing legislature, and that one that is much more attentive to environmental issues. She is the chief author of Prove It First, the ERA bill, and Protect Reproductive Options Act, among other progressive legislation. Our other legislator joining us this evening is Representative Athena Hollins from 66B in St. Paul. Athena has committee assignments that include climate and energy, finance and policy, judiciary, finance and civil law, parenting and homelessness division. I'm sorry, preventing homelessness division, a little different there, public safety, and criminal justice reform, finance, and policy. Representative Hollins is the chief author of dozens of key progressive bills touching on a wide range of topics and several utilities and energy related bills, including one we'll be talking about tonight, House File 3146, which addresses environmental justice and air quality. Please welcome our representatives, Senator Jen McEwen and Representative Athena Hollins. And I'm not sure who would like to take away first today, but I'll stop my screen share so we're focused on you. And I would invite either one of you.
I think the senator always has to go first. I think that's the rule.
Oh, come on. I'm happy to just start off to say thank you so much, everyone, for having both of us here this evening. I always love to appear on any forum with Representative Hollins. I am a huge fan of Representative Hollins, and so it's wonderful to get together this evening and to join you for this forum to talk about the plans coming up for this legislative session and what's on the horizon. Thanks for that introduction, Vita. But before I ran for Senate, I was also for a relatively brief time compared to Vita and Greg and some of the other people in the environment caucus, sort of dove in also to be active in the caucus. And so I had a couple of years anyway of a little bit of familiarity with how the caucus works and just how important the work is that all of you do. And as a new legislator, I can say, I can sort of sound off and from the other side and say, yes, indeed, the work that you are doing is so, so critical and so important. You know, we know right now the time period that we are in, especially with the climate crisis and with a clean water crisis also accompanying that. This is in many ways the work right now. This is the make or break decade that we're in right now. So the work that we're all doing and that all of you are doing in your communities at that grassroots level, the organizing, the coming together, the pushing for good legislation, the electing of strong leaders who are ready to actually move on these issues and take action. It's everything. It means everything right now. So I just want to thank all of you so much. And I'll pass it over to Representative Hollins, then we can keep talking about the details.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better than that, which is why I knew I had to have Jen go first. She's so smart and passionate and eloquent compared to myself, but I will try my very best. So hi, Athena. I'm Athena Hollins. And I'm really happy and honored to be here today. I was just asking leadership of this group, like, are you sure I'm the right person to do this? Because I still feel so new and so just, I won't say overwhelmed, but it's just a lot to take in. But I know that I am here for a reason and that I'm at the legislature for a reason. And, you know, it's my passion for this work in particular, for environmental causes and for climate causes, that really pushes me forward every single day and, you know, makes all of the long nights worth it. So I feel really honored to be here. And I think Jen has a really good point, or Senator McEwen has a really good point, which is the work that this caucus does, and that, you know, that folks outside of the legislature do in pushing us in the right direction is really, really crucial. I sort of came to this thinking like, well, these are like common sense things. And of course, we all want to have clean air and clean water. And somebody just hasn't explained this to individuals in the right way to get them to move on this. But the reality is, it is so much less about policy and more about politics. You know, I think, and that's where really like people from the outside come in. That's where regular everyday citizens come in to play a part, because the impact of the politics of this, like, you can directly impact that, because that's what our legislators listen to. They listen to people. They listen to, you know, when a group gets together and says, this is really important to us, and if you don't vote the right way on this, we are going to create a huge stink. You know, I think that is honestly more impactful than like the best, most beautifully crafted policy in the entire world, right? Like, we can come up with the perfect bill and it doesn't matter because the arguments that we're having are less about crafting the language the right way and more about this culture war we're really having right now. And I think that's where, you know, constituents and citizens of Minnesota really have a huge impact. So I applaud you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Right back at both of you. And I'm wondering, what are your goals for this session? What do you see as feasible? Things that we can really help you push over the line, and maybe some things that we need to get the conversation started, you know, with issues that we do need to tackle. Athena, would you like to start with that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, I think a lot of the things that we have as goals are going to be pretty familiar to folks. And that's because last year in the House, you know, we passed the most robust climate and energy omnibus ever. And unfortunately, it really got whittled down once it went to the Senate, obviously, the GOP controlled Senate. So there's a lot of work that went into that omnibus that we're continuing to push going forward. And of course, there's sort of these new pots of money that we get to use. So really thinking about it as a more feasible practice this time around maybe than last time, because of the budget surplus, the projected budget surplus that we have, as well as federal funds that have come through. So a lot of things around electric vehicles we're hoping to get passed. I don't know if you folks, you probably talked about this, but with all the clean car stuff last year, the Republicans got really mad and did not want to do anything involving electric vehicles when we got to conference committee. So we are renewing that effort to sort of build out our infrastructure around electric vehicles. Think charging stations at rest stops, at state parks, creating requirements for buildings for electric vehicles to have charging stations in those buildings that are built, these new buildings, as well as trying to upgrade people's, personal electric panels, which might not be able to handle, the sort of charging that we need for things like electric vehicles, but frankly, also for things like electric appliances, if we are trying to help folks swap out gas appliances for electric appliances, which are better for the environment and better for climate. Some things that I'm really focused on this year are energy storage. Again, to me, this is the next big step in addressing climate change, because being able to provide renewable energy when the sun isn't shining and when wind isn't blowing is so crucial for us moving to this 100% renewable standard that we're looking towards. And I'm pretty excited about it because there is some tentative bipartisan support this year from the Senate. And so I'm really hopeful that we can create some meaningful investments in that. I'll say last year I also worked on energy storage and did more of the stick method of the carrot and stick. We went more with mandates. And this year we're going to be focusing more on incentives for individuals, potentially looking at like a storage reward program, personal tax incentives for battery storage, and also like building microgrids for critical infrastructure and helping to fund those microgrids. So it's not a terribly sexy subject, but it is something that's really important as we move into this new generation of renewable energy. And the last thing I'll talk about, because really I could talk about all of these things forever, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling.
No.
The other big one that I'm really interested in is zero waste efforts. And I got particularly interested in this because last session, my own county came to me and was very upset that there was potentially that it would not be considered get renewable credits for running their incinerator. And I asked them, which I love my county people, they are wonderful, but I asked them, so what's your plan? Because an incinerator isn't renewable energy. And what are we going to do to move forward with that? And they said, well, we're not sure, but that's what we need right now. We need to have this incinerator. And I was like, no, you cannot tell me that the answer is just either landfill or incinerator. Like, the fact that you're saying those are my two options and that's the only choices that I have is not acceptable. And if you want to do something else, by all means, ask me for money, right? Come to me and say, this is important and we need to find an alternative. But I'm telling you, this is not going to work for us as a community, as a society, for us to keep just delaying this process. So I have been working with some stakeholders to create a zero waste grant program that's sort of modeled off of the zero waste federal legislation to define what zero waste goals are, and then create grants for individual municipalities or counties to start working on addressing waste issues. And we're really hoping that this is going to be something that's more upstream, as opposed to what do we do with the waste once we have it, instead looking at how do we stop the waste from entering into this stream in the first place, because we know that once we have it here, we don't have that many options on what to do. So, and we're looking at this as a really positive piece of legislation also because it is a job creation opportunity. Like we're looking to take this to places in greater Minnesota where they are maybe more reliant on, the fossil fuel industry and say, hey, but we can create jobs here and we will give you money to help you create jobs here that are going to further our efforts to have a zero waste economy. And we want you to think creatively about this, and we want you to find the right program and the right, the right opportunity that works for your community, because we recognize that all towns and cities and counties are not the same in the state of Minnesota. And so we really need to be reflective of those differences and help to accommodate folks to move in the right direction. So I'm going to stop talking because I feel like I'm talking a lot and really, really fast, and hand it over to Jen to talk about her work.
Could I ask you one more question though, before we move on to Jen? I noticed you were chief author of the bill that wants to modify state policy to analyze and consider cumulative pollution before issuing an air quality permit. Yes, is that you?
Is that House File 3146?
Yes.
I am a co-author, but I'm not the chief author.
Okay, super.
Yep. Julie is the chief author.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to comment about that one? Because it's one that I noted.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think this is such an important bill. We really try to look at, I guess I shouldn't say all of us, but most of us are really looking at all of our climate and environmental bills with a climate justice and environmental justice lens on. But I really love this one because I think a lot of the bills that I'm working on, it will be like in the implementation, we'll try to figure out how to make sure that we're serving the communities that have the greatest need first. But this one is really like head on talking about not allowing different projects to happen if the air quality is just abysmal. And we know that air quality is terrible, mostly in communities of color, lower income communities. And so I think that I really like that this addresses the issue head on. And I really commend Representative Lee for working on this. You all may or may not know, but his district is very close to the HERC in Minneapolis. And so it's something that directly impacts his community every single day.
Thank you.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. And so I was just going to say, I think that more bills that we can create like this and hopefully get them through, the greater impact we can have. And I think it's really a matter of like getting those bills across the finish line because they are really important. And yet the second we say something like equity or climate justice or environmental justice, we get yelled at and told that we are really the racists and it's our, that we're being biased against, I don't know, wealthier communities, et cetera. So it gets kind of ugly. Wow. But yeah, but I mean, I think that this is an important conversation to start having because it has real world impacts for these individuals.
Absolutely. It came up when we were working with East Phillips neighborhood on their issue, right? Trying to make better use of that space there in the old Sears building. And it is an issue. It's an absolute issue. They don't need any more poor air quality type projects there, right? It's a asthma area.
Right,
area.
exactly.
Thank you. And I'm remiss here. I need to tell my audience, if you have questions for our legislators, would you please feel free to put them in the chat? Greg is going to lead a Q&A here in a bit, and he will be keeping track of your questions so that he knows what you'd like to ask. So thank you so much, Athena. And I'd like to turn it over then, I guess, to Senator McEwen, if she would like to fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of things to add. As I was thinking through, I am sort of envious of Representative Hollins being in the House controlled by the DFL because In the House, they're really moving legislation actively. But on the other side of that coin, I guess what opportunity it presents for those of us in the Senate who are working on climate and clean water is our job is sort of twofold. One is that we support our House colleagues, that we're doing the best that we can from the Senate to help them push through things like getting the lead out. That's going to be a big one. I hope that we can be really successful with the different legislation trying to get the lead pipe transition and replacements really moving at a faster pace with that federal money coming as well. And then also the hunting ammunition and tackle and things like that for fishing to get the lead out of all of that stuff. Also PFAS is another sort of practical, let's move on some of this legislation right now. We'll be trying to help with some of that. And all of those wonderful specific pieces of legislation that really are the kind of like pieces of a Green New Deal type of approach, right? Like job creation, because the Green New Deal is a jobs program, right? So the more that we can do those types of pieces, no matter what we call it, we can call it whatever we want. But if we're going to do that kind of transition work and job creation work for the next economy, it's so exciting to see the House doing that. So I'm excited to support the House. The other piece though that we could do in the Senate, which is kind of exciting and which I actually like a lot, is that we get to do a lot of vision setting. So especially as we're in an election year right now, we get to push forward the vision that we actually want to see, that we actually want to be moving toward. So I plan on spending a lot of time raising the profile of some of these big issues, really working the politics of this. And I'm speaking to a political group, our DFL Environmental Caucus, so I feel comfortable really getting into all of this with you. But I think that at this time that we're in right now, it is absolutely crucial for us to push not just our adversaries in the state legislature, but also to push our friends and to push one another, right? Because the climate crisis that we are in now and that we're going to be that is going to be more intense increasingly over these years, this is an enormous challenge before us as a society, as a people of this planet. And the work that needs to be done to truly transition is big, and it is a change in mindset also from a sort of colonialist manifest destiny approach to development that we've seen for so many decades and still see around the state and reflected in our permitting laws a lot of the time as well. It's about changing that big piece. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the climate crisis. I'm going to be talking a lot about clean water, a lot about the inherent value. And I'm not talking about a monetary value, but an inherent value in and of itself of our clean water in our community. It is going to be absolutely crucial to protect our clean water in Minnesota. And so to that end, I'm going to be working on some big bills with some of our allies, the Prove It First. Of course, we've reintroduced that, and we're going to be really making another big political push, hopefully, maybe, knock on wood, to maybe get a hearing in the House. We'll see if they could fit us in over there. But we'd really love to raise the profile for that. We also have a bill that will be coming through called a bad actor bill. It's kind of like a background check for some of these large corporations that have extractive industry projects. So it would allow our agencies to do that sort of background check to find out what sort of activities these corporations have been involved in. And if they have been involved in things like child labor, if they have had corruption allegations or charges against them or convictions, fraud, embezzlement, some of the things that we have seen with some of the companies that want to do business in Minnesota. We could say no. We could say no. We don't want you doing business here, especially not with a project like this. So we're not going to permit that. So we have that. We have also a taxpayer protection bill that we're going to be pushing. Senator Ann Johnson Stewart is the Senate lead on that. And that is a great bill. I love it because it really forces some of these corporate actors to put the money up front. As we know, and I preach into the choir here, I know, but we know that a lot of these projects aren't worth it unless they can pass the cost and the risk on to the community, right? It's just not. So what the bill does is say, well, if you think that this risk is worth it, then show us the money. Put up the money, put up the actual money in the bond for the environmental disaster that is inevitably going to occur as a result of your operations. And so that's an exciting one as well. So we have a bunch of different pieces of legislation. And in terms of that visioning, I'm working on some legislation right now that some researchers in the Senate and I are looking at and trying to get some feedback on right now that would essentially create a moratorium on all new fossil fuel industry-based projects. That's something that I decided to start calling for after the last IPCC report came out. Yep. We know that, we got the clock ticking down really fast here. We really can't be building new fossil fuel-based infrastructure. For a limited time, we can maybe truly replace, if we're talking about true replacement, just to wind down the infrastructure that we have, but we need to be actively winding down this infrastructure and not building any new fossil fuel infrastructure. So that's sort of what I'm talking about in terms of leading in the Senate through vision for where we actually truly need to go. And in meeting with all of you this evening, this is like my call to action to you is please, you're going to, I think, especially in this election season, feel a lot of pressure to sort of tone it down a little bit, right? You're going to feel a lot of pressure from within our party, from within communities to be like, climate change is scary, be careful, don't jeopardize elections, just hush about all of these concerns. And what I would really ask all of you to do is find that way to talk about these issues with a sense of urgency, with enough hopefulness, hopefully that you're not talking just pure fire and brimstone to people, but also a sense of hope about what we could create and what we need to create and what we need to do for our kids and our grandkids and the generations to come. It truly is on us in this moment right now. And I just, that sense of urgency, I think, is often lacking in the Capitol, frankly, in conversation about when we talk about what is possible or what the timing is going to be, the changes that we're going to make, how fast we're going to be able to make them, especially when we're faced with projects coming down like line 3 that is operating not too far from where I am right now, and oil is flowing through it, and it will be on our heads that is happening right now. That is a ethical, moral disaster underway. So things like that, I really appeal to all of you in this environmental caucus to just keep pushing, keep demanding what actually needs to be done, and make people feel hopeful that we can do it. We truly can. We know that we can. We just have to really believe the science, trust in the science, trust in one another, in community, and just push forward. We really do need to push forward. So I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, you are both so inspiring. I know I am reinvigorated just listening to you with the task ahead. And I know it's not an easy one, but with people like you, Senator McEwen and Representative Hollins, I feel like we're going to get this done. And I would like, I think at this point, to turn it over to Greg, who I think may have some questions he's been gathering or some he would like to pose.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to both of you. We have questions. I'm going to take a moderator's privilege and just comment first. This last point, Jen, you made, which I know is where you come from philosophically and everything you do. We have a problem. I mean, I've been in conversations with two members of the government, the state government. I won't mention names or agencies, which I was told no to some very basic questions, which I'll be bringing from the audience in a moment, because we are still feeling burned by getting slapped around by the Senate over clean cars. And I would like to say, we won that fight. So why are we acting like we lost it? We won it. So act like the winner, okay? You know, they're bullies, and we have to treat them like they're bullies, which is basically not backing down. They can't have our lunch money again. And there is a kind of a culture war going on here, like you mentioned. And the point is, we need to know how to prioritize clean water and climate while we are still prioritizing other things. There's more than one number one issue. We have to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. And we can, like you said, Jen, both of you applied this. We can actually do it. One question in many forms we have here from a few different askers, including Milland and related some other questions. What is the story with electric school buses right now? And I know you both want to talk about that. Suddenly, we're seeing a lot of projects, little projects here and there, electric school buses coming into some districts. We have the Volkswagen money. We have other things. What's the basic landscape from the legislator point of view in the process of what we simply know that we must do, which is replace every single school bus in the state with an electric vehicle, or another way to get to school, maybe, you know, flying cars, I don't care, as long as they're electric. What is the landscape in the House and Senate on electric school buses this year? And what kind of acts might be, can we take actions this year on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this because this was one of my passion projects from last year. So yes, 100% electric school buses, they need to be done. There's so much research that's done about how it impacts both school bus drivers and our children, lower test scores for kids who are more exposed to diesel fumes, and especially in the state of Minnesota where it gets real cold. You better believe they're not venting those buses the way they need to be. And so it is absolutely crucial that we push this forward. So, I mean, I had a decent, we didn't drop it as a single bill, but it was included in the omnibus last year for electric school buses. It was going to be divided, the cost was going to be divided by Xcel Energy, the RDA fund, and the school district, because the real kicker here is that electric school buses cost about 3 times as much as regular school buses. And so really what we're running into is, how do we fund something like that? And the answer is, there are ways. I mean, there are ways to fund this. Now, again, it got stripped out because of the electric vehicle pushback from the Senate, from the GOP Senate. But I am very hopeful that we can continue to work on this. And I'm continuing to work on it and trying to build up some stamina with Xcel Energy again, but that's only for folks that are in that Xcel territory. I know that Senator Lindsay is also working on some language around that, and Jen might have more ideas about, or better idea of what Lindsay is working on. But I think the reality is everybody's in favor of this. Like, it's a no-brainer. And the only, we got a little bit of pushback. I know there was a question of what's the pushback. So it's the cost and the length of drive that they have to make. So we wouldn't be able to use them for like sporting events where you have to drive, across the entire state of Minnesota, because we don't have the EV charging infrastructure in place yet to make that work. But I think, there's an argument that it's only a matter of time before we do have that infrastructure in place. And, honestly, the cost is not something, when you look at it over the length of the existence of the vehicle, you actually end up saving money, right? Compared to the cost of putting in diesel on a regular basis. So I think that I'm really excited about it. I'm very hopeful that we can move again on this in the way that we were talking about. But I also recognize that, there might be other opportunities that are outside of the Xcel area that want to capitalize on this as well.
Jen, did you have anything, Jen, that you want to add on that, or?
I don't have much to add. I
Okay.
just made a note for myself to go ask Lindsay where things are at.
Right,
with it.
okay.
So I'll go ask Senator Port.
There's we're going to come back to electric vehicles a little later in this show, but two related questions. Larry Day is asking about solar in schools. It will be expanded, how much, how fast? And Carl Forsberg is asking us to tell us about efforts in the legislature to develop solar power in existing buildings in urban areas to both expand renewable power sources and reduce heat island effect. What's the landscape right now in the Senate and the House for solar?
I went first last time, Jen, so I'm gonna let you.
I think my sense is that the appetite is good. It's very much like my sense is that it's very much a free market reliant enthusiasm in the Senate. So there is a sense of, well, we're not going to spend any money or very little money to do anything. The free market's going to take care of all this stuff anyway, right? So those of us that know that the free market needs often to be steered and driven in the correct direction, know that we need more than that. But overall, I guess I can't speak for where my Republican colleagues are at on this, but my sense is that as much that they definitely support those free market efforts to develop solar, and that is sort of the orientation that they have.
Yeah, I remember Paul Newman's version of the Reese's peanut butter cup. It was better, but it never got picked up because the free market doesn't exist for peanut butter cups, because the people who make the candy have contracts at all the places you can buy them, right? So there's a free market. Anyway, what is, and since a related thing, we'll skip ahead of the question here. Is there anything going on right now? I know there are some things that happened last year and some things this year, but what's the story with legislation on replacing the car with public transit, going towards methods of getting around that don't require internal combustion engines?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And it's one that we struggle with, I think, in the legislature, because being a statewide body, there are pockets in the metro areas that it makes a ton of sense to, avoid cars. And then there are areas that people feel, I shouldn't mention any names, but some people feel very strongly that they absolutely need single person vehicle to get around in. But I know that we are looking to invest substantially in public transit as well. So public transit is buses, rapid, what's the word I'm looking for? The big fast buses. My brain's not working. And trying to build out those systems so that they're more efficient and so that they can be used by more people. And one of the things that I'm always harping on, and it probably gets really old for these poor people writing these bills, but that we have to make our public transit easy to use and nice to use. If you go to certain areas of I think any city that you're in, you'll notice that there's a difference between the more affluent areas and the poorer areas. I mean, I live in a poorer area in St. Paul, and there is no bus shelter, right? You're just out in the elements on the side of the road with people splashing icy water on you. And so if we are going to make it so that people want to use public transit, we need to build out that infrastructure around public transit as well, so that individuals feel like they're being taken care of, like you might feel if you're over near McAllister College, where you've got heated bus shelters and nice places to sit and things like that. So I really think that we're working on it in a number of different ways, but there's always more to do. There's always more to do. And we get a lot of pushback from Greater Minnesota about the lack of utility for public transit in their area, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Representative Hollins just said. And I think that we just had this we do have this effort up in Duluth right now. I don't know how many of you have been following this, but there's a grassroots group led by some professionals who just in their free time had this idea of let's look at our city and what are some major things that we could do to make it more walkable, less car dependent, more able to move around, to connect to the water, which is of course the crown jewel of where we live, right? Like to be really connected. And they came up with this really innovative, exciting plan to retool the section of freeway that runs right through the middle of downtown Duluth and splits the downtown from Canal Park and then also from the water. And it's just a really exciting idea, and it's been great. So we arranged some meetings for that group to present to the Department of Transportation, to MnDOT, to various stakeholders, and they've been doing some wonderful activism and push to try to get their ideas studied and integrated and perhaps moved upon. Like, can we study this to see what the effects would be? And I can say that we have had some success, which is good, but we've also met with a lot of resistance. It does feel like the wheels of MnDOT in general are geared toward laying concrete, frankly. That's what MnDOT does. So I think it's a beast, MnDOT, that has to be sort of moved, and there are some people and have been people within MnDOT trying to change that perspective about what transportation should look like for people in our society. What's the purpose? What is it for? And really thinking more holistically about the movement of people and goods and how we can do all of that in a way that preserves more of the integrity of our communities and the connection, and business too. Like it's good business. It just makes so much sense to approach it in a healthier way. So that I think that there is some turning, but the sort of status quo of how everything is all set up to happen is not geared that way. So when you try to it's like trying to come into the system where everything is geared this one way and you're trying to gear it in this other way. And it's like you have to build new gears for it almost. So that's a report on that. And then one hopeful thing is there's some real talk about getting the Northern Lights Express up to Duluth. So yeah, that would be wonderful. Really, really exciting. I know I would take it all the time, going back and forth from Duluth to the capital. It would be just great. But I also, and this is important, I think, for this group especially, the more that I've learned about the electrification of our automobiles in our country and how we want to move toward this, the more that I've been convinced that we're not going to be able to just switch all of the cars that we have now to electric and have everything solved, right? I mean, the electrification is part of the solution, like it's good, but there has to be a switch in the way that we do this overall. It has to be a diversification. So it's not like people can still have cars and use cars, and there's a place for having an individual little pod that you can just kind of go wherever you want. And we want to electrify things so people can do that. But when talking about movement of people in general, there should be trains for one, right? There should be trains. There should be mass transit for people. And like Representative Hollins said, it should be quality, really. It should be pleasant to take. It should be something that people want to use and are drawn to use. And I would add to that end, I saw that there's been an effort to do this, I think it was in Boston, to make it free. It should be free. I'm not saying every train should be free. It should be affordable for people, but the transit, the public transit within a municipality should be free. It should be part of our commons, right? And that kind of circles me back around to this idea is that this is part of our commons, our transportation. If we're taking our individual little car pod that we zip around in and go places, that's a very individual activity that we do. But it's like we need to reclaim that commons part of getting around our society. There's a place for that as being a collective good that all of us share together. And so it should be free to the user, right? It should be really good quality. It should be beautiful. And we should value it as a society. So I think I'm not seeing a ton of movement in that direction, but I am seeing some pieces of hope and some really exciting ideas from younger people going forward. So that gives me hope too.
We have other questions, but we need to move on. I will make a quick comment and address all the questions simultaneously. 2 comments. But one is, I just noticed, I just can't help it. I don't hope this is not offensive to anyone, but it seems to me that right now the House's nuts and bolts and the Senate is aspirational because of what you have to do and what they let you do. So if you win the Senate, don't stop being aspirational, because you're going to end up being a little forced to get into nuts and bolts differently. I'm on the questions. There's 2 things I want to say about all the questions that have been asked and all the things you said. There is a huge correlation between everything that has been said so far and the DFL Environmental Caucus's list of resolutions. You notice that? Like, you didn't hit every single resolution, but almost, and we're really in accordance. And that's not a coincidence. You know, we are all in the same policy, meta policy shop in a certain sense. But the other thing is, some of the remaining questions we don't have time for, about carbon tax, about energy and conservation that Larry is asking about, we're probably going to hit all those in our next forum, because it's going to be about that stuff. So we're not leaving these topics. We are, in fact, moving forward with them. So Vita, should we just move on to the next phase? Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea. This is actually Vita's idea, and we're implementing it together as part of the Environmental Caucus legislative action. And you can go to the next slide. It's called a commitment club. And the idea is that you join us and commit. You sign an agreement. You don't really sign anything, but you just commit to making 2 calls or emails to your legislators, to any legislators a week. We'll give you directions. We'll say, get a hold of Jen McEwen and, you know, tell her you got her back, or get a hold of some other person and say, stop doing that, or whatever. 1 letter to the editor a month. This could be to your local paper, your penny saver. If you've got a local paper, they will publish your letter because they're always looking for content. But even if it's a strib or something where they might not publish everything, if we ask our members, please write about this topic to the Star Tribune, something will get through, and it will at least educate the editors, which actually is something that goes on, is a part of the LD process, of educating the editors. To sit down with a Zoom or face-to-face meeting of some kind with a legislator, we will help organize that sometime this session, and attend a lobby day that we will have, which we are hoping to do in person, but with COVID, we don't know, but something, we'll do something. And I'll put something in to sign up on this in a moment. But that's what we're asking people to do. That's what the commitment club is for. And we're hoping that you will join us. If you do that, we'll keep you posted. We'll give you all the directions you need. And then we'll have a way that you can keep track on a spreadsheet of your efforts. And then when you complete the efforts, you will get incredible and amazing awards and prizes, which we'll announce later. So please sign up in the chat at the link. I'm going to put the link in there now. Okay. Take it away, Vita.
All right. Thank you, Greg. So yes, please join us. As you heard from our representative and senator, we need you to get involved so that we can help further our issues. We have our climate champions fighting for us in the legislature, but they need our help. So I wanted to focus on just a few of the bills that we're currently following, and this is really, really partial as we are just getting going, but I would like to focus on a couple tonight. First of all, under the heading of environmental justice, as Representative Hollins mentioned, look at this map, guys. This is incident of blood level and arsenic. So we have the arsenic triangle here in the Phillips neighborhood, where the soil is contaminated and the air is full of toxins, so that many of the children, a high percentage, have asthma. And so this bill, House File 3146 and Senate File 3211, that Representative Hollins is a co-author of, would modify state policy to analyze and consider cumulative pollution before issuing an air permit. And this is not a new idea. The representative from this neighborhood, I'm losing her name, somebody help me out, but had introduced this before, but I think it was a narrow region of the state that it applied to. Is that correct? Someone can help me with that one in the chat.
I think that's right.
Yes.
Well, Karen Clark was the author.
Thank you. That was the name I was searching for, Carl. And
And
Carl,
what was the other question?
so Karen Clark's bill wasn't statewide, I don't think.
No, it's specific to that neighborhood.
Right. So this would be
Are those considered a green zone?
exactly. So this bill would be more statewide, looking at areas that are definitely green zones. So the second thing that Senator McEwen, I believe, spoke to was efforts to get the lead out. This is the resolution that the Environmental Caucus and other groups are taking to the state convention, we hope, right? First to our precinct caucuses, and that now next to our organizing unit conventions. You can see Kelly Morrison, physician, also Senator Matt Klein, both are talking about the fact that there are no safe levels of lead, right? None. And so we have to get it out of our homes. We have to get it out of our drinking water. We have to also protect our wildlife by banning it from ammunition and fishing tackle. And there are 3 lead bills to help support this that we need you to write to your representatives about, senators and legislators, and please tell them to support them. So House File 2650 and Senate File 2531 would fund replacement of lead pipes. The next one, 2556, would say no lead ammo, right? When we're out hunting, and we can't have that. And then, oops, excuse me, the next one is about lead tackle in terms of fishing. We know that we have loons and other waterfowl that are dying because of lead in our tackle. So please help get this across the line, join our commitment club, and we'll keep you focused on actions you can take. The next thing, of course, you know, we're very passionate about, which is prove it first. This would put a moratorium banning copper nickel sulfide mining in Minnesota, basically anywhere, until we can prove that it is safe, right? We're all thrilled that Twin Metals is no longer looking at the boundary waters, right? And that we got those leases pulled, but we need to protect all of our watersheds. And so we applaud Jen McEwen and the 64, 65 legislators that have signed on to this bill. The problem is we can't get it heard. So we need you to help us say we want this bill heard in the House and the Senate, and that we need to protect our water. We don't want it soiled by toxic copper nickel mining. The next thing we are pushing along with MCEA, this is their graphic, Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, is to help get the Next Gen Climate Act passed. This is very important. We have outdated standards for renewable energy. And as we hear from our scientists, we've already wasted way too much time. We need major reductions in our carbon emissions within the next 8-10 years, or it's going to be very difficult to meet our climate goals. And so the Next Gen Climate Act would set a 0 greenhouse gas emission goal by 2050. But more importantly, it has more short-term goals, reducing emissions 30% by 2025 and 45% by 2030. So, and also they would require annual reports to the Minnesota legislature to ensure that we are meeting these targets this time. Because frankly, we didn't meet the goals of the old Palenti 2007 targets. So again, this is a very, very important act. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg to talk more specifically about our upcoming climate action caucus.
Yeah, thanks. And I did, as Vito was talking, I put a link there on the lead actions, just a list of those bills. So you can have that right there. Everybody who's in our commitment club, you're all going to get an email from us summarizing these actions and refining them. And I just put a link in, just happens to be the bills recently introduced by Representative Acom in the House, which touches on, all of these issues. The climate, the Minnesota House Climate Action Caucus, just to make sure is not a DFL operation. It just happens to only have any DFL members in it, apparently. But it's, whatever. So Vita, next slide, please. This is basically $1 billion. This is $1 billion when you add this up approximately, that will be put into a range of things: energy, transportation, built environment, and adaptation, resilience, and lands. And that includes things like lands. That's for evergreen agriculture and carbon, sinks. Built environment includes the stuff Larry was asking about with, making structures more efficient. Transportation is a wide range of things, including electric vehicles. The buses are in there, and so on. So it's a comprehensive omnibus of climate action. And we will be taking direction from the legislators in the House as to what to suggest to do. But this is going to be where we're going to be asking you to make a call, send an email, fax, if you know what that is. They used to have fax machines. I think if you got a fax machine, if a legislator received a fax, that'll be like sending 10 letters, because they have to move stuff out of the way. Anyway, so that's what we want. That's one of the main things we're going to want to be asking you to help with. The our next forum on March 13th is same time approximately as this one, started a bit later, is going to be with Representatives Acom and Long, and we'll be talking about a science-based approach to the climate crisis. We're attempting to control energy costs, make green energy available. We have to worry about, with the green movement, as we are sometimes called, has been promising green jobs, but the free market will not give you green jobs. Somehow the free market will figure out how to make electricity in Indonesia or something, or it will figure out how to not pay decent wages for people who are working on these things. We've got to be on top of that. And when labor, which overlaps with the petroleum industry, comes after us, we have to remember in Minnesota, they're not the biggest union in the state. Okay, and we have to ensure that this is a good place to work, good place to live. This is a one Minnesota problem, and we're going to be talking about this at that event. And that'll also be a DFL Environmental Caucus membership event too. So you can get your membership credit by showing up for that. Now, this is a project that MN350 started, and I've been co-organizing it. Maddie Johnson at MN350 is their electric vehicle person. She's been running it. I've been helping it. There's this team of us, about 6 people. DFL Environmental Caucus is in on it. There's a thing called a memorandum of understanding that several governors have signed, and we're trying to get Governor Walz to sign. And it is basically a whole bunch of stuff you do. It's not legislative, it's not binding, it's not executive order. It's just, let's get on board with the idea of doing a whole bunch of things to convert our trucks over, our buses over to electric. I don't know about any of you, but where I live, when I hear a traffic jam going outside my house, I live in the suburbs, I look out the window, it's Amazon delivery trucks, right? Trying to get down the street past each other, and Federal Express trucks and so on. We have, and all those Amazon delivery trucks are bought in the last couple of years, right? Every one of them was built in the last couple of years. Why are they internal combustion engine? Why are they? The issue came up before. People have asking in chat, like, can we retrofit buses? What is the lifespan on a bus? What's their payback? It turns out those are not simple questions with simple answers. We had a meeting the other day with a company in Minnesota that makes these things. And we were asking them, well, how long do they last? And what do you do about this in cold weather? They said, what did you want? want a bus that drives in the cold? We just put the cold battery in it. You want 500 miles? We'll give you 500 miles. You only want 300 miles? It'll be a little cheaper. In other words, we can design these vehicles to meet the goals we need. It isn't like there's an electric bus and an electric bus need, and they may or may not match. This technology is flexible and engineered to work as we need. And we're going to learn a lot about electric buses at the Bus Back Better event that is there in the chat for you guys to sign up for. And part of it is to try to get the governor to sign on to the MOU, but also just for people to learn about these amazing technologies and what they offer us. And then the Commitment Club. Now, I've already put the Commitment Club in here. I assume everyone here is going to join that, right? Get your friends to join it. I think we're serious about this. Last year we did a thing with legislature using the here's a link to the Commitment Club. We did a program where we had about 100 or so people who were on our list who are constantly getting in the faces of the legislators and other people. And this year we're expanding this. Like Jen said, we're out of time. We're not asking for anything special. We're just going to get every single member. And if you don't want to help, if you don't want to get an email from us every now and then saying, please do something, then just don't be in our caucus. Okay. If you're in our caucus, you're going to help us. We're going to take you to the legislature and you're going to help us. But the Commitment Club goes a bit more than that, because you're saying, I will do these things, not just I will not delete the email right away. I'm going to do these things. So please join that and become part of our team, because we are a big caucus. There's like 1,000 of us.
1,400.
1,400. And you know what? How many of those have joined in the last year or so? Like
Lots.
hundreds. Like it was under 1,000 a couple of years ago. So those aren't people who like moved away. Okay, they're still with us. So we can be there and we can take direction from Athena Hollins and Jen McEwen and Patty Acom and Jamie Long and Senator Stewart and other people, and we can get our people to arrive, get our people to contact, get our people to push, and make all of these things, the clean water and the energy, a #1 priority, along with our other important issues. So please join the Commitment Club.
Absolutely. And Senator McEwen, any last words?
Thanks everyone for having us this evening. It's always really fun to get together, and you all inspire me with all of the work that you do. You did before I ran for office, and you still do. And it's just wonderful to be in this work with you. My office is always open, and please, don't be strangers, be in touch and keep us in the loop on the things that you're working on, because I think that this is true for me and also true for Representative Hollins. I won't speak for her, but I think I can safely say this, that our work at the legislature comes out of the work that activists and organizers are doing within our communities. And I know that is an ethic of mine, and I think that Representative Hollins also has that ethic, that we're part of that work that you're doing. We're just trying to bring it into the legislature. So we follow your lead in many respects and want our work to be an extension of your work. So I look forward to our continuing collaboration and thanks.
Thank you, Senator. And Representative Hollins, did you have any last words?
I just second everything that Senator McEwen said. I'll say the best work that we do is born out of, the activism and hard work that you all do. I think every once in a while in the House, we definitely have to take something that's, I don't know, coming out of the free market for solar, but even that, it gets to our goals in the end. And so we're okay with it. We're, by whatever means necessary. So thank you so much for having us. I really enjoyed this. And I hope I can tune in for when Patty and Jamie come and talk next time.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. And I'd like to turn it over to our chair, Megan Bond, for a few words.
Can I just ask quickly before Megan, you start, a final ask? Go to their website, their Facebook page and websites, Representative Hollins, Representative McEwen, like them and thank them publicly for doing a great forum for us
Yes, there you go.
so that they get a little positive, press. Anyway, sorry, Megan.
No problem. It's also an election year, so when you're doing that, I'm sure they wouldn't, they would appreciate a few dollars here and there. So yes, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and just thank Senator McEwen, Representative Hollins. You guys are two of my favorite legislators and fellow lawyers too. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to remind everyone it's going to be March 13th at 6 p.m. is our next forum. And Johnson Stewart and Jamie Long are confirmed to be there. So we will be talking about what are we working on? This Greg and Vita have been the great co-chairs of legislative committee have been working on these. So this one will be concentrating around climate change and the climate caucus in the House, or the legislature in general, excuse me. And then that'll be just followed by a short environmental caucus meeting. Just take care of a little business as we do 4 times a year. So if anyone wants to be interested in that, watch for the email and the Facebook invite and all those things that come out probably this week because it's coming around the corner real fast. All right. And just want to tell everyone to please drive safely, stay warm, stay dry. I think there's a storm coming through
Wow.
some parts of Minnesota. So enjoy your 8 inches of snow.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening, especially to Senator Jen McEwen and Representative Athena Hollins. We really appreciate all your work. And to our members, we have 41 people that joined us. I think at one point we were up to 50. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And please join that commitment group. And there is a checkbox on there for people that want to help us with planning. There's a lot of bills to follow, and we could sure use your help in getting out those action alerts. We would like to do them weekly. I'm teaching during the day. It's hard for me to get to those committee meetings. So any help you can give us would be greatly appreciated, in addition to the emails and the phone calls and the lobbying that we're all going to do. So thank you all very much. And with that, I would say good night.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.